So here I am at the original site of what was the Essex filter beds, as designed by William Booth Bryan in the late 1880s, and part of it was attempted to turn into a museum in the 1980s, which is a bit of a turn on figures. However, they ran out of money, as councils do, and it's all a bit redundant now, and it's been roped off, but the fences have actually collapsed. It was made out of soft wood, and it collapsed, and now you can just walk in willy-nilly, and you can see, it's a bit weird, it's like a double deja vu, because you can see the attempts in the 80s and 90s to create, you know, like water thing, you know, and yet even that, look at that 30 years on, even that is now completely dead. Isn't it incredible? It's like visiting a museum of a museum that's now dead. Anyway, what I'm about to do, I have never been here before. This is quite an exciting moment for me. I'll try not to cry. But I'm now standing on one of the original... Wow. Now this, almost lost for words, try and carry on. This wellhead here is ginormous. Look at this, this wellhead must be about, you're talking, probably 25-30 feet just from here to there, and then the same again the other side. So you're talking roughly about 60-foot wide well here. And as it goes down to the core, it will always be water level. Actually, I'm not entirely sure whether this is an aquifer. No, I don't think it is. It's all crap. You could admire. All they say here now. All you can do is admire the fine Victorian brickwork. Wahahee! But their water will always be there because that's actually water level. That's the word I was talking about. Isn't that amazing? That supplied water for pretty much the whole of London in 1886. So following on from that clip, highly advantageous to me actually seeing that, and what I will do is find out the depth of that. I wouldn't like to speculate at the moment. I believe this is the Essex filter beds, and that's bed 13 there, so this may be 180 feet deep, and if it is, then it would account for the naturally aspiring water which would be coming up to these feeders. But it might be slightly shorter. My only concern at the moment is because there's moss on the top of that water, so it seems to be a little bit stagnant. So although it's actually water level, it's not actually, you know, like thrusting out fresh water. And if it was, then there wouldn't be any moss there. It would certainly be active, but it's some level of activity because there's water here now in the old reservoirs here, the old filter beds, where the plan was, roughly speaking, is that you'd have a central wellhead in the middle. I mean, I'd never realised this was so big. I had no idea of it. I could imagine maybe a 20-foot bore or something, but a 60-foot wide well, you know, that takes Victorian engineering to a completely another level. I mean, the observation bit there is, you know, it's actually here. This is the width of it, and there's several of these here. Isn't that utterly incredible? The amount of manpower and shovels. Don't forget, this is before electricity, before gas. There may have been aid of a steam pump with coal and water, which is obviously in plentiful supply, but it was before the internal combustion engine and your modern troubles of diesel engines, especially made by Volkswagen. Right, but isn't that incredible? Isn't that incredible? You know, again, in awe of the quality and workmanship of, you know, that's 100, nearly 150 years old, that is. Look at that. Still working. It's not something that comes from China, is it, that drops on Christmas Day? More evidence in the 80s and 90s, they still at least did make an effort. The waterworks here, Lee Valley Park. Everybody ran out of money, didn't they? It's probably before the first recession in '92. You see this, right, and then you think, well, it's all very good, referencing some of them still had pools of deep water and you can't see anything. But rather cleverly, you move here and you have a hatch. Please close the hide windows after use. Look at this. And then you go in here and you've got this little hatch thing and you can look out there over what was one of the reservoirs for London. It's still got deep water in it. There's a lot of herons. I've seen a lot of herons here today. That's why I'm keeping my voice down. But as soon as you try and film a heron, they even realise what you're doing and they fly off. Oh, they flew off now. Okay, so welcome to bed 16. It says here 10 years on. I believe they closed in 1972 or thereabout. No, they were still operation until about 1975. So this would have been referencing a roughly 1985. And I mean, you can hardly read it. After 10 years of more, the filter beds look something like this, which they've got. And obviously the pages there, you know, David Cameron came in, didn't he? And Blair came in, didn't he? And other people came in, didn't they? Didn't they? And all the pages got taken out. Now, look at this, another flap. This wood is actually not bad. And you know what? This one has got one of those little gate things on there. You can actually lock it up. Look at that. So there, see that pipe there? The well would have brought the water, that would have been underwater level there. And obviously when they're building this, all the stairways and that would have been used, you know, massive, thousands amounts of man hours on those steps. I often wondered why they bothered building steps down to something that was underwater, but don't forget when they were building it, people would have done thousands of trips there. Can see possibly a few beehives over there, which is quite interesting. Interestingly enough, there's an alley out there which represents one of the, I think each waterbed had 5, it's built in sort of a star shape. Each waterbed had 5 separate reservoirs. Now the idea was the water comes in and settles in a filter bed through sand, and then that's basically purity. Before you started adding fluoride or other shite to the water, it's probably the Victorian people who put this stuff in, without a shadow of a doubt, had better quality than the water we have today. Our water today travels 100 miles. It's a combination of a load of stuff, and I've seen the chemicals imported from Holland and Germany that they add, the fluoride and all that they add to the water, and it smells like rubbish. This stuff here is, you know, I'd take the challenge. I would drink a lot of this stuff. It's relatively fresh water there. Anyway, the pipes there would coming from the well and they'd feed the water. The filter beds are in a star shape, which means you have about 5 beds, and then the separate pumping stations would have dealt with it. 13 pumping stations at one point, all coal powered, would have all under the chief engineer's auspice of William Booth Bryan, would be undertaking this colossal a project. But it is interesting to see there you've got the platform out there, and yet there's no way in. It's all look at that, it's all you know, it's all you know, pretty much a goner, really. It's a past. I mean, maybe somebody should make the museum of the museum of the museum. That would be quite useful, wouldn't it? Anyway, yes, one of the great wonders of the world here. It's the Leighton, formerly Essex, filter beds, one of the main wellheads, roughly 60 foot wide. This is quite interesting now. Do you remember, there was a TV children's programme, was it called Rainbow or something, where some school programme where you said, yeah, let's look through the red window and all this stuff, and you used to open the windows. This continues all the way around, so let's have a look at. Oh, that's nice. You can see another filter bed boundary there. Those filter bed, the reason for this, there's another one there. The reason for that star shape, I would imagine, would be to keep, for basically compression, which means to keep it straight and upright. Obviously, if you've got a lot of weight, a lot of depth, the Victorians certainly know how to deal with compression. Now, basically, compression means dealing with things circular rather than square. That's angled there, which means it would be put in later, right? Pipes are round because you've got compression. Now, if you've got compression here, I'd imagine this filter bed would be round, which it looks like it is. So you have as much compression as you can, which means basically the forces go all the way round. If you were to build a Lego tower, or try this at home, people. Say you were to build a tower out of Lego bricks. Right, loose Lego bricks without attaching them, and then get a hoover or a vacuum cleaner and puff it, it would fall over straight away. If you build one circularly, when you put the vacuum cleaner on it, it would actually bend before it breaks because of the compression in the circles. So basically what happens is, when a force, say, imagine a gale is blowing onto a high chimney, right? Now, the wind would take the chimney on the side angle and try and push it over, but the forces, the energy goes all the way round the chimney and back in, so it counteracts itself. Obviously, with a square one, that side takes the wrath of the energy, and there's nowhere for the energy to dissipate because the energy would just go down the side angles roughly, and because it's not feeding back in a perfect circle, it will probably collapse much easier. So squares were not a Victorian thing. You can see that pipe there. I would guarantee, I haven't looked at them up, but I would look at these moorhens. They love it. They love it. They come over. Very curious they are. They'll come and have a look and see what's going on. Got some lovely ducks over there. As I said, I've seen some moorhens today. Some wrens today already. Here we go, look, it'll come right up close. They're very curious animals. Alright, goodbye, I'll leave you to it there. So yeah, getting back to the circular thing, you can see there's circles everywhere with Victorian stuff. Chimneys, wells, drains, houses, archways, keystones. It's a major thing, and that's what contributes towards Victorian building being the strongest it can be, because basically circles are freestanding, and it goes back thousands of years, indeed even over to Syria, where unfortunately a half-circle arch was blown up recently by something called the IS, and but looking at it, it didn't have a keystone in it. So what the Victorians did, Victorians actually improved upon that, and then on the turn of the century, when there was a change of just at the turn of the 20th century, there was a change of reign, and it was almost like everything slowly began to be forgotten about, with the widespread use of concrete and the widespread use of steel liners, and all this quality got forgotten about. But even when the whole of London is, gone, God forbid, or in thousands and thousands of years, when we have the sun crashing into the earth, this stuff will still remain. It's genius stuff. Join us. Okay folks, to finish this bonus addition to my DVD today, original water and strainer, the aqueduct. This is the last remnants of the aqueduct that brought water to the necessary reservoirs to filter beds. Untrue. Red card. With the water came a lot of waste material and litter. The giant strainer, i.e. what I would call a trash screen, you can see collected the rubbish. The water flowed through the holes, and old leaves, sticks and other waste material were held back. From here the water flowed to be cleaned more thoroughly and it might look quite clean, but it was not safe to drink yet, as it had to go through the filter beds, which we've just seen. Now, I don't know when this was last officially open, but you definitely cannot, I've seen them before from the other side, but you definitely cannot see the trash screen in there. And that trash screen actually in itself deserves to be grade 2 listed, because it's probably the largest Victorian trash screen, or one of them, in the world. And yeah, it's, you know, it's just complete. Look at this. It's bollocks, isn't it? Nobody gives a toss about Victorian engineering, do they? You can tell the amount of people that have been in there to clear it out. But these are the various different levels of filtering here, you can see. And from the other side we'll be able to see the trash screen, hopefully, if I can get back that way, because it's blocked off. You could have like a big grid where the aqueduct would come down and basically disperse all the flood. By the way, the most important thing about this is that Victorians, even before, they must have known, some had some sort of premonition, because even before the London population explosion, in the latterly part of the Industrial Revolution, they had already planned a flooding escape route. So all of this stuff has very clever overrides and emergency measures. It's all immaculately done. I know the bridge would have been added later, and all the concrete stuff would have been added later. I'm not that concerned about that, but there's huge pits of like emergency reserve runoff beds in case something should go wrong, if a sluice fails. Don't forget, they were dealing with millions of gallons of water even then, and they must have thought, okay, so what happens if something goes wrong? You know, a piece of wood in a lock gate fails on the River Lee, a rope breaks, a steel, an early steel or iron cable frays in the middle of a winter night. Suddenly the lock gates, so to speak, are open. What happens? Well, they did actually, all of this is absolutely bulletproof safe. I haven't read that it is, you're hearing it from me. I've walked it many times, I've studied it from maps, and I've been all around the area, and I cannot find fault at all with any of the Victorian waterworks stuff that was put in. It is absolutely faultless. Join us. Today it looks like many other parts of the country, rural Oxfordshire, perhaps Herefordshire or Worcestershire, unpopulated farmland with animals roaming freely. But I'm actually in a different place today. I'm in the heart of central London, and referencing the plans that the Victorians put into place earlier with regards to overflow mechanisms. If you look carefully down there, you can see runoff pipes from the wellheads. Over in yonder there is overflow pipes from the reservoirs, and also an overflow mechanism from the East London aqueduct, which goes all the way up to Chingford and beyond, which is also connected to all the other reservoirs as well. And so, almost in Hackney here now, at the end of Leighton, you've got this huge expanse of what would have been in the past, no trees here, just a sort of unused bowl in case, on that very rare occasion, should something go wrong. Now, as far as I've read, of course, dealing with the Victorians, you would imagine this. Nothing ever did go wrong, and these huge bowls here, there's several of them, were never used. Apart from a trickle, you know, like. But they were never used. It was the emergency fire escape that over 150 years has never been used. And yet, in the next 20 years, the Lee Valley will be facing a plethora of challenges regarding flooding risk. And one would hope that before this is all caved in, built up, that one will re-engage with the Victorians engineering skill and put this to good use. Personally, I would imagine that this will one day be full of water, and I hope I'm not alive enough to see it. Alright, thank you, goodbye. That's the end of the East London Waterworks chapter 6.